sign language is on its way to becoming an official language in South Africa. It's already been officially recognized as a home language in the education system. Now, the public has had time to comment on a proposed amendment of the Constitution to make sign language South Africa's 12th official language. As today is the 1st of September, it's also the beginning of Deaf Awareness Month. And the aim of this campaign really is to promote awareness of deaf persons in South Africa, as well as equality for deaf persons. To tell us more, we are joined by Samora Mbuyazi, who is a social auxiliary worker working with the Deaf Federation of South Africa, also known as DeafSA. And we also are joined by Lizanne Boysons, who is the Provincial Director for Gauteng for DeafSA. And a face that you know all too well sitting right next to me is Fortune, who usually you see in a little box in the corner of the screen, but she's joined us on set to interpret for us. But ladies, good morning, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good morning, good morning. Thank you very much.
I want to start with you, Samora, and talk a little bit about your work with DeafSA and why it's so important for you to do this work, especially now that it is September and the awareness programs are kicking off.
Thank you very much. Yes, I work as a social auxiliary worker with DeafSA. So whenever communities need access, for example, if deaf people are within the communities and then DeafSA have their own social auxiliary worker who can be there to assist with the deaf community, and then we work especially with intervention with women and children, those who have experienced rape. So that's the work that we do within the community. So another thing is that with DeafSA as the organization, so it's not just only when it comes to the going to community, but then we also campaign and make sure that we for sign language to become an official language. That's something that has been happening for years and years.
Yeah, Lizanne, if I bring you in here and I say, why is it important that we have this conversation around sign language becoming one of our 11 official languages, in fact the 12th official language?
Thank you. Sign language, yes, will soon be the 12th official language. So it's important to also know that, because when it comes to sign language, it involves, yes, the deaf community. And it's very important for the deaf community, and also the hearing community needs to be more aware of that once it becomes an official language.
Absolutely. And one would hope that once we have a sign language as an official language, that more and more South Africans would want to pick up the language, right, Lizanne?
Yes, absolutely. Many people, like right now, I've been getting a lot of questions. They're interested, they want to know sign language. I've been getting a whole lot of that. So now the interest is there. And because, I mean, first of all, there won't be any barriers to communication or barriers to access once we all unite and as a society.
Yeah, I think I've enjoyed learning, a few words here and there and some letters and a little bit of the alphabet. And I know that once you get into it, it really is quite a bit of fun. But let's talk about some of the work that we still have to do, Samora. In South Africa, we talk a lot about the challenges that women face. And then on top of that, you're dealing with the challenges that come with being a deaf woman in South Africa. Take us through that daily experience that South Africans perhaps don't really have the inside scoop on.
Yes, I mean, with us as a deaf community, especially being a woman, we experience lots of challenges, especially the attitude and the accessibility when it comes to police stations or any other services that we need to have, because we have also a right to have our own voices. When we go to hospitals, or maybe one gets arrested, and then who reads you your rights, something, for example, and the deaf community, that accessibility, if I'm pregnant and I don't know exactly, and I've got something that I really need to say, or I get a prescription and someone does not exactly explain it to me in my language that I understand, that's the biggest challenge, that's the biggest barrier. So that's why within the hearing world, or the hearing community, especially hearing women and hearing deaf, there's various disparities, so we need to make sure that we take these barriers away, so that, I mean, as a deaf person, I need to make sure that I'm comfortable walking to the police station, because that's the reason why we are doing these initiatives, to go there and help more deaf women, because so that we know that there's a lot of challenges and a lot of barriers for especially deaf women.
Yeah, that's interesting, because what that says to me is that introducing sign language as the 12th official languages in the country isn't really just something that we're doing for the sake of unity and diversity. It really isn't just about that image that we want to paint of ourselves as a country, but it's about human rights, Lizanne, correct?
Yes, correct, because that's why now, that's why the 18th Amendment Bill has also been out there for people to make sure that they comment and put their input so that it can become an official language. What
has the traction been with the commentary in your view, and do you think that commentary has come primarily from the deaf community on its own, which would be problematic because you want more involvement from the greater community in the country?
Yes, people generally, yes, they do comment, because I mean, yesterday, which was the 31st of August, that was the deadline for the comments for the 18th Amendment Bill, so that with all these comments can be taken together. But then some people can be very slow when it comes to submitting their comments and adding their views. So we have received, but it could be enough. If I may add, Samora, it's not just one, it's not just the deaf community, but then also the comments are needed from the hearing communities, because deaf people live within hearing communities. They have hearing families. So now hearing families also have a right to also submit. So I'm not sure if there will be an extension or so, because the deadline has already passed.
Yeah. What is it essentially that you want to see, though, come out of this process, outside of it just being about having this sign language as an official language? What is it that you want to see from an investment point of view? And I'll bring this one to you again, Lizanne, where we talk about that human rights element, addressing some of the issues that Samora has talked about accessing healthcare facilities and all of that, is an expensive process, and you need to convince leadership to invest in that human rights balance, I suppose.
If we all, as people of South Africa, know sign language, or if we can learn sign language, and yes, we have interpreters there, but then the most important thing what I would like to say is that accessibility, that's exactly one thing that we would like to see more than anything, because if I were to be a deaf person and I go to a hospital, I cannot always be waiting for an interpreter to come, because maybe, for example, if I'm there and the doctor or whoever, the healthcare services who are there, they have access to sign language, they know sign language, then I'll be free to come also, even with or without an interpreter.
Yeah. Just quickly, some of the events that we can expect throughout September as we observe Deaf Awareness Month, Samora?
Yes, there's various activities where hearing community and the deaf community come together, because our main aim is to making sure that once it becomes an official language, then at least the deaf community will be there to also assist the hearing community to be also part and learn sign language. So now I think throughout the month, actually, we will be having various activities, so that even with us as deaf people, we can be able to access any facilities without having to wait for an interpreter, because we would know that when we get to that facility, the interpreter is there, and so that there's no confusion. The minute they see a deaf person, then the facial expression changes. So I mean, that's how we actually communicate as deaf people. So hearing community need to understand all those varieties. So that's what we're focusing this on.
Give us platforms where we can go to learn sign language, because I think South Africans have all seen this, right? Which is I love you. That's the one thing that South Africans all know. But teach us a little bit more. Where are the platforms that we can go to learn? Lizanne?
Well, DeafSA office also offers those services, but the basic sign language, that's what we offer. And then, so we offer 10 lessons, and then you can come to the DeafSA offices, or then perhaps maybe you want more and to go in depth with the structure and to a higher level, then you can go to Wits University. Those are they do have a degree and diplomas, doctorate and masters, so they've got various courses when it comes to that.
Well, it's been such a pleasure having you ladies in studio. Thank you so much, and for getting Fortune out of the box for once. Such a pleasure having you in studio with us, Lizanne Boysons, Provincial Director for DeafSA, as well as Samora Mbuyazi, Social Auxiliary Worker also with DeafSA.